The girl no one saw. She didn't know he was the Vampire King. She just knew he was a cruel man blocking her path. So she did the only thing she had left. She slapped him. And instead of rage, he smiled.
I know, but I'm
The
so
night in
afraid.
Valorith City was cold.
I trust you.
Not winter cold. Lonely cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones when you have nowhere to go. Lena stood beneath the broken bridge near the old river docks, hugging her thin jacket around her body. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. The bakery she used to clean had replaced her. The landlord had thrown her things into the street. And the shelter was full. Again. People passed her like she didn't exist. And maybe she didn't. To them. But Lena still carried something the city couldn't steal. Her dignity. She wasn't a beggar. She refused to beg. She would work. She would survive. She would not break. Even if the world kept trying to bend her. Across the city. Inside a palace carved from black stone and moonlight. The vampire court gathered. Candles burned in silver holders. Velvet cloaks swept across marble floors. And at the center of it all, King Adrian Nocther. Feared. Untouchable. Cold as ancient ice. His red eyes scanned the room as nobles argued about territory disputes and human unrest in the lower districts. He wasn't listening. He was bored. Immortality had a way of making everything feel predictable. Until something unusual happens. The next evening, Lena walked through the merchant district hoping to find temporary work. That's when she saw it. A small child dropped a pouch of coins. It rolled across the cobblestones, straight toward the boots of a tall man dressed in black. The crowd instantly parted. They bowed. Lena didn't. She didn't even look at him. She only saw the child. She rushed forward, scooped up the coins, and handed them back. "Be careful," she whispered gently. "Money disappears fast in this city." The child ran off safely. The tall man watched her. She still hadn't looked at him. Interesting. No fear. No trembling. No recognition. King Adrian tilted his head slightly. "Do you know who stands before you?" one of his guards snapped. Lena frowned. "No. And I don't care." He was blocking the child's way. The entire street froze. No one spoke to the Vampire King that way. No one. The guard stepped forward, furious. But Adrian lifted a hand. Silence. His crimson eyes studied her closely now. She looked tired. Thin. Poor. But not broken. "Leave us," he commanded calmly. The crowd scattered instantly. Now it was just the two of them. The king, and the homeless girl. The confrontation. "Why did you not bow?" Adrian asked softly. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Lena finally looked at him. Really looked at him. He was beautiful. Unnaturally so. Sharp jaw. Pale skin. Eyes like burning rubies. But she also saw something else. Pride. Arrogance. "You're not my king," she said quietly. "Kings protect their people." The air shifted. A dangerous shift. Vampires passing nearby felt it instantly. The king's aura darkened. "You question my rule?" he asked. "I question your absence," she replied. That did it. Gasps echoed from hidden shadows. How dare she? How was she still alive? Adrian stepped closer. Too close. "You are either very brave," he murmured, "or very foolish." Lena's heart raced. She could feel something unnatural about him now. Something ancient. But she refused to step back. "Maybe I'm just tired," she whispered. "Tired of powerful men doing nothing." The silence was suffocating. And then he smirked. Not angry. Not insulted. Intrigued. "Careful, girl," he said softly. "You stand before someone who could end you with a single thought." "Then do it," she shot back. And before fear could stop her, before survival instincts could scream, she slapped him. The sound cracked through the street like lightning. Time stopped. Guards reached for weapons. Vampires bared fangs. The king's head tilted slightly from the impact. A red mark bloomed slowly on his pale cheek. No one breathed. This was the moment she would die. Lena's hand trembled. She hadn't planned it. It just happened. Years of frustration. Years of injustice. Years of being invisible. And now she had struck the most powerful being in the kingdom. She closed her eyes. Waiting. For pain. For death. For something. But nothing came. Instead, a low, soft sound. Not a growl. Not fury. A chuckle. When she opened her eyes, he was smiling. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. But genuinely. "You," he said quietly, "are the first person in 300 years who has dared to touch me without fear." The court was stunned. The guards confused. And Lena? Completely lost. "Take her to the palace," he ordered calmly. Her blood ran cold. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she protested. His smile deepened. "Oh, I think you are." The palace gates were massive iron, carved with ancient symbols. Lena had never even seen this part of the city before. Inside, everything glittered in dark luxury. Gold chandeliers. Crimson carpets. Marble statues of past vampire rulers. And in the center, the throne. Adrian sat upon it like it had been carved for him alone. "Why am I here?" she demanded. He studied her like a puzzle. "You believe I do nothing for my people?" "Yes." "Then stay," he said simply. "Watch. Learn. Judge me properly." She blinked. "That's it? You wanted my attention," he said smoothly. "You have it." The court whispered in outrage. A human girl in the royal hall? Unacceptable. But Adrian silenced them with one look. Lena felt overwhelmed. This world wasn't hers. These people weren't hers. But something inside her refused to run. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll stay. But I won't pretend to respect you." His eyes glowed faintly. "I don't want pretend respect." His voice softened. "I want real." And for the first time, she saw loneliness in his gaze. Not cruelty. Not evil. Loneliness. That night, Lena stood on the palace balcony, looking over the city that had forgotten her. Behind her, footsteps approached. "I could have killed you," Adrian said quietly. "I know. Why did you risk it?" She thought for a moment. "Because someone needed to remind you that you're not untouchable." He stared at her long and hard. Then said something unexpected. "Good." She turned slowly. "What?" He stepped closer, but not threatening. "I am tired of being feared." The wind moved between them. Something shifted. Not romance. Not yet. But recognition. Two lonely souls from opposite worlds. The homeless girl who had nothing. And the king who had everything, except connection. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the palace, enemies were watching. Because the moment a king begins to change, someone always tries to stop him. The night
This
she
power
slapped
is
the vampire
corrupting you.
king,
Power is the only path.
she thought
At
surviving
what
him was the
cost?
hardest
Whatever
part.
it takes.
She was wrong. Because the real danger wasn't the king. It was his court. The morning after, Lena didn't sleep. Not really. The bed was too soft. The room was too beautiful. The silence was too heavy. A homeless girl does not suddenly wake up in silk sheets without feeling like it's a dream waiting to shatter. She sat at the edge of the massive canopy bed, staring at her reflection in the tall mirror. Same tangled hair. Same tired eyes. Same thin frame. Nothing royal about her. And yet, she was inside the most feared palace in the kingdom. A soft knock echoed at the door. Before she could answer, it opened. 3 women stepped inside. Elegant. Pale. Dressed in dark crimson gowns. Vampires. Their eyes scanned her like she was dirt tracked onto marble. "So this is her," one said softly. "The human," another whispered. Lena stood. "If you're here to insult me, just do it directly." They exchanged glances. "We are here," the tallest one said calmly, "because His Majesty has ordered you to attend court today." Lena blinked. "Court?" "Yes," the woman's lips curved slightly. "You wish to judge his rule. Today, you may observe it." Her tone carried something sharp beneath politeness. A warning. Crescent Moon Scene 2, entering the lion's den. The throne hall was already full when Lena entered. Vampire nobles lined both sides. Whispers began immediately. "That's her. The human. The one who struck him. She should be executed." Lena felt every stare like tiny knives. But she kept walking. Chin up. Shoulders straight. She would not shrink. At the far end of the hall, on the obsidian throne, King Adrian watched her. Not cold. Not angry. Studying. There was something different in his eyes today. Curiosity. She stopped several steps away from him. Did not bow. The court inhaled sharply. Adrian's lips twitched slightly. "Begin," he ordered. A king at work. The first case involved a dispute between 2 vampire landowners. Accusations of stolen blood shipments. Broken territory laws. Threats of violence. Lena expected arrogance. Cruelty. Indifference. Instead, she watched Adrian listen. Truly listen. He asked questions no one expected. He demanded evidence. He exposed lies calmly, without rage. When one noble attempted to manipulate the situation, Adrian's eyes flashed red, but his voice remained steady. Power does not excuse dishonesty. The noble fell silent. The ruling was fair. Balanced. Protective of lower-ranked vampires. Lena frowned slightly. This wasn't the tyrant she imagined. Case after case unfolded. Some brutal. Some political. Some heartbreaking. A young vampire pleaded for leniency after feeding illegally to save his dying sister. The court demanded punishment. Adrian paused. Then said quietly, "Mercy is not weakness." He reduced the sentence. The hall erupted in whispers. Lena felt something unfamiliar inside her. Doubt. Had she judged him too quickly? The humiliation. When court finally adjourned, Lena turned to leave. But a voice cut through the hall. "Your Majesty," a female noble said smoothly, stepping forward. Tall. Beautiful. Dangerous. Lady Celine. Her eyes settled on Lena like poison wrapped in silk. "May I speak freely?" Adrian leaned back slightly. You may. Celine smiled faintly. This human girl has been granted presence in our sacred court. Yet she shows no respect. No obedience. No understanding of our customs. Her gaze sharpened. Is this the example our king wishes to set? The room went still. This wasn't about respect. This was about control. Lena felt heat rise in her chest. Before Adrian could respond, she spoke. I never asked to be here. Gasps again. Celine's expression darkened. And yet you remain. Lena stepped forward slightly. You speak of respect. But I saw none for the starving humans outside your gates. Murmurs turned aggressive. You dare. I dare because no one else will. Lena's voice cracked, but she didn't stop. You live in gold halls while children freeze under bridges. Silence. Deadly silence. All eyes turned to Adrian. Would he defend his court? Or her? The tension was suffocating. Then Adrian stood. Slowly. The entire hall bowed instantly. Except Lena. He descended the steps of the throne. Stopped in front of Celine. Are you suggesting, he said calmly, that my judgment is flawed? Celine hesitated. No, your majesty. Then do not question who I allow at my side. The message was clear. Celine bowed. But her eyes, when they lifted again, were full of hatred. And they were locked on Lena. The warning. That evening, Lena stood alone in the palace garden. The air was cooler here. Calmer. She heard footsteps. Not Adrian's. Celine emerged from the shadows. You think this is a fairy tale? Celine asked softly. Lena didn't respond. You humiliated him in public. And now he protects you. Do you know what that makes you? No. A threat. Lena swallowed. I don't want power. Celine stepped closer. It doesn't matter what you want. The moment a king shows interest, the court sees weakness. Her voice lowered. And weakness is hunted. The words lingered long after Celine disappeared. Lena felt something she hadn't felt before. Fear. Not of Adrian. But of the world around him. The king without his crown. Later that night, Adrian found her on the balcony again. You handled yourself boldly today, he said quietly. I made things worse, she replied. For yourself, he corrected. Not for me. She looked at him. Why are they afraid of me? He considered that. They are not afraid of you. Then what? He stepped beside her. They are afraid of change. The wind moved between them again. You could send me away, she said softly. Yes. Why don't you? His jaw tightened slightly. Because you speak truths no one else dares to. His voice dropped lower. And because when you look at me, you do not see a monster. She hesitated. I did, she admitted. And now? She met his eyes fully. Now I see someone carrying too much alone. That hit him. Deeper than the slap ever could. He looked away first. For the first time. The Vampire King seemed human. Crescent moon emotional ending beat, the shadow moves. High above the palace walls. A hooded figure watched from the rooftops. Silver blade glinting under moonlight. Voice whispering into the dark. The king grows distracted. A pause. Prepare the strike. Back on the balcony. Lena felt a sudden chill. Adrian sensed it too. Something had shifted. The game was no longer about pride. Or defiance. Or court politics. It was about survival. And neither of them knew. The first attempt on his life would happen because of her. The night blood fell from the sky. The first assassination attempt was never meant for the king. It was meant for her. And when the blade fell from the sky, the vampire king didn't hesitate. He chose her. The royal gathering. 3 nights after the court confrontation, the palace prepared for the Moon Assembly. A gathering of vampire elites. Nobles. Generals. Ancient bloodlines. Lena stood in front of a tall mirror again. But this time, she wasn't in worn clothes. She wore deep blue silk. Her hair had been gently brushed back. She barely recognized herself. A maid adjusted the sleeve carefully. His Majesty insisted you attend. Lena swallowed. Why? The maid hesitated. Because everyone will be watching. That wasn't comforting. Eyes like knives. The grand hall glittered under crystal chandeliers. Music flowed softly. Vampires moved gracefully across the marble floor. And when Lena entered, the music didn't stop. But the whispers did. Every gaze shifted. Judging. Measuring. Waiting. Adrian stood at the center platform, dressed in black and silver. Crown resting lightly in his dark hair. He saw her immediately. And for a split second, the cold king expression faded. Not into love. Not yet. But into something warmer. He descended the steps toward her. And offered his hand. The entire court froze. A king does not offer his hand to a human. Lena stared at it. Then placed her hand in his. The contact sent a strange warmth through her fingers. Stay close, he murmured softly. Why? She whispered back. His jaw tightened slightly. Because they are waiting for you to fall. Lady Celine watched from across the hall. Her expression calm. Too calm. She leaned toward a shadowed figure beside her. It begins tonight. The figure disappeared silently. Meanwhile, Adrian guided Lena through the assembly. He introduced her to generals. To advisors. To elders older than kingdoms. Some were polite. Most were not. One ancient vampire spoke coldly. Humans break easily. Lena held his gaze. Only when no one stands beside them. Adrian's lips curved slightly. But beneath the polished elegance of the night, something darker moved. Unseen. Waiting. It happened fast. Too fast. A sudden flicker in the balcony shadows. A faint metallic whistle slicing through air. Lena turned her head at the last second. She saw it. A silver arrow. Not aimed at Adrian. Aimed at her. There was no time to scream. No time to think. Only instinct. Adrian moved faster than sight. He pulled her violently into his chest. The arrow pierced through his shoulder instead. The impact echoed through the hall. Gasps turned into chaos. Guards unsheathed blades. Music stopped. Lena felt warm liquid splash against her hand. Blood. Dark. Royal. The king's body tensed, but he did not fall. His eyes turned blazing red. The temperature in the hall dropped instantly. Seal the exits, he commanded, voice no longer calm. Voice no longer gentle. Voice of a predator. The shooter tried to flee. But vampires are faster than fear. The assassin was dragged forward within seconds. A masked vampire soldier. Shaking. Lena clutched Adrian's arm. You're bleeding, she whispered. He didn't look at her. His gaze was locked on the assassin. Who sent you? Silence. Then, the assassin looked at Lena. and smiled weakly. She is the weakness. Before anyone could stop him, he bit down on something hidden in his mouth. Poison. He collapsed instantly. Dead. The breaking point. The hall was in chaos. But Adrian only saw one thing. Her. He turned toward Lena. His breathing heavier now. The silver arrow burned through vampire flesh like fire. You were the target, he said quietly. Her voice trembled. Because of me, you're hurt. His hand gently lifted her chin. No. His voice softened. Because of them. For the first time, the court saw something terrifying. Not his anger. Not his power. His protectiveness. And that was far more dangerous. He pulled the arrow from his shoulder without flinching. The wound began healing slowly. But not fully. Silver weakens even kings. He turned toward the watching nobles. If any of you believe harming her will weaken me. His eyes darkened. You misunderstand what you have created. The message was clear. Touch her again. And the consequences would be devastating. After the blood. Later that night, Lena sat in his private chamber while a royal healer treated the wound. She watched silently. Guilt heavy in her chest. When they were finally alone, she spoke. You should send me away. He didn't answer immediately. You nearly died because of me. He stepped closer. You think I regret moving? She couldn't look at him. I'm not worth a war. His hand gently tilted her face upward again. You are not the cause of this conflict. His voice lowered. You are the excuse. That realization settled heavy between them. This wasn't about her slap anymore. Or court drama. Or pride. This was politics. Power. Control. And she had become the symbol of change. I don't want anyone else hurt, she whispered. He studied her carefully. Even now, you think of others. A pause. You are not weakness, Lena. His voice almost broke. You are the only thing in this palace that feels real. Silence wrapped around them. The distance between their faces small now. Too small. Her heart pounded. His hand still gently holding her jaw. Neither moved. Neither crossed the line. But something undeniable passed between them. Not passion. Not yet. Trust. Deep within the lower chambers of the palace, Lady Selene stood before a hidden council. Ancient vampires seated in darkness. The king shields a human, she said calmly. He bleeds for her. An elder voice replied. Then remove the human. Selene's eyes gleamed faintly. No, she whispered. Break the king. Back on the balcony. Lena stood beside Adrian once more. But this time, closer. The city lights flickered below. You saved me, she said quietly. He didn't look at her. I will always protect what is mine. The words hung in the air. Mine. She should have felt trapped. Owned. But somehow, she felt safe. And somewhere in the shadows, the next attack was already forming. This time, it wouldn't miss. The night she chose to bleed. The second attack didn't come with an arrow. It came with fire. And this time, she didn't wait for him to save her. She stepped into danger first.
I know,
The
but I'm
warning
so-
signs.
Stay with me, I won't be
After the
gone.
moon assembly attack, the palace changed. Guards doubled. Hallways monitored. Whispers grew sharper. Lena could feel it. The air was different. Heavy. Like something terrible was counting down. Adrian had become colder in public. Stronger. More ruthless. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. One evening, as Lena walked through the inner garden, she noticed something strange. The roses. They were blackened at the edges. Burned. But no fire had touched them. She knelt slowly. Touched a petal. Still warm. A voice behind her spoke softly. "You should not walk alone." She turned. It was Captain Darius, commander of the Royal Guard. Loyal. Silent. Observant. "Am I in danger?" she asked. He didn't lie. Yes. The trap. That night, Adrian was called to the lower council chambers. An emergency vote among elders. Lena remained in her wing. But something didn't feel right. The corridor outside her room was too quiet. Too still. Then, smoke. Thin at first. Then thicker. Dark. Heavy. She rushed to the door. Locked. From the outside. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "This isn't an accident," she whispered. Flames began creeping along the tapestries. Not normal fire. Blue fire. Vampire fire. Meant to burn fast. Meant to burn deadly. Below, deep in the palace. Adrian stopped mid-sentence. He felt it. Not the fire. Her fear. His eyes flashed violently red. Without another word, he vanished. Choosing the fire. Back in her chamber, smoke filled Lena's lungs. She coughed hard. The windows were too high. The flames spread faster now. She knew something suddenly. This wasn't meant to kill her quickly. It was meant to trap her. Force him to choose. And then she saw it. Across the corridor through the smoke. A shadowed figure holding a blade. Waiting. If Adrian came through the main entrance, he would walk directly into the assassin's strike. Her mind worked faster than her fear. If she stayed, he would rush blindly. If she moved, she might draw the assassin out. Her hands trembled. But her heart made the decision. I won't be the reason he dies. She grabbed a burning curtain. Wrapped her arm in it. Pain seared instantly. But she ran. She forced the door open by throwing her body against it again and again. On the third impact, it burst. The assassin moved. Exactly as she predicted. The blade flashed toward her. But she didn't dodge. She stepped into it. The steel pierced her side. White-hot pain exploded through her body. The assassin froze. Confused. This wasn't how prey acted. And that hesitation was enough. A roar shook the corridor. Adrian arrived like a storm. He didn't look royal anymore. He looked ancient. Feral. Terrifying. He crossed the distance in a blink. Snapped the assassin's neck without pause. The body hit the floor. But Adrian didn't even look at it. He caught Lena before she collapsed. Her blood soaked into his hands. Red. Human. Fragile. No, his voice broke. No. The breaking of a king. He carried her through smoke and fire. Guards scrambling behind him. He didn't feel the flames licking his skin. Didn't hear the chaos. All he saw was her face growing pale. "Stay with me," he whispered urgently. Her eyes fluttered. We're going to walk into it," she breathed weakly. His jaw trembled. "You foolish, reckless girl." But his voice cracked. "You stepped into the blade." She tried to smile. "You said I wasn't weakness." He reached the healer's chamber in seconds. "Save her," he commanded. Not kingly. Not powerful. Desperate. The healer hesitated. "It is a deep wound. Human bodies are not." "Save her," Adrian repeated. The room trembled. Not from magic. From his fear. Between life and death. Hours passed. Adrian did not leave. He sat beside her unmoving form. Her breathing shallow. Her skin too cold. He had ruled for centuries. Watched wars. Watched blood spill like rain. But this small, fragile human girl, shaking his entire world, terrified him. He touched her hand gently. "I have buried armies," he whispered. "I will not bury you." His voice lowered. "You are not allowed to leave me." For the first time in centuries, the vampire king prayed. Not to gods. Not to fate. But to anything listening. "Take power. Take crown. Take immortality. Just don't take her." Just before dawn, her fingers twitched. So faint he almost thought he imagined it. Then, a soft inhale. Adrian froze. Her eyes slowly opened. Blurry. Confused. Then they found him. He was still holding her hand. "You look," she whispered weakly, "awful." A broken laugh escaped him. Relief crashing through like a tidal wave. "You nearly died." "So did you," she replied softly. Silence fell between them. Heavy. Real. He leaned closer. Forehead gently resting against hers. "I cannot lose you," he admitted quietly. "Not as king. Not as ruler. As a man." Her weak fingers tightened slightly around his. "You won't." And in that moment, the line between king and human disappeared. By morning, the entire court knew. The human girl had stepped into a blade meant for the king. She had chosen to bleed for him. And now, the king was no longer distant. No longer cold. He stood before the full court that evening. Voice calm. Eyes lethal. "The next attempt," he said evenly, "will not be answered with mercy." Lady Selene watched silently. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Because something had changed. This was no longer political distraction. No longer curiosity. No longer fascination. The king was in love. And love was the most dangerous power of all. The crown and the choice. They gave the vampire king one final command. Choose. The throne. Or the human girl who dared to slap him. And for the first time in centuries, the king did not answer immediately. 3 days after Lena survived the blade, the ancient council called an emergency convocation. Not a gathering. Not a discussion. A judgment. The grand hall felt colder than ever before. Elders lined the upper balconies. Nobles filled the marble floor. Whispers crawled through the air. Lena stood beside Adrian. Still healing. Still pale. But standing. And that alone was defiance. The head elder rose slowly. "Your Majesty," his voice echoed like stone scraping stone. "Your attachment to the human has destabilized the court." Silence thickened. Adrian did not move. "She has been targeted twice," the elder continued. "Because enemies see weakness." Lena's fingers tightened slightly. Adrian noticed. He gently brushed his hand against hers. Subtle. Reassuring. "She is not weakness," he said calmly. The elder's eyes hardened. "Then prove it." Lady Celine stepped forward. Elegant. Controlled. You were promised to strengthen our bloodline, she said evenly. The room stirred. Promised. So it was true. Centuries ago, alliances had been arranged. Political unions. Calculated futures. You were to secure immortality for this kingdom, Celine continued. Not gamble it for a mortal. Lena felt the weight of every stare again. Not hatred this time. Expectation. They weren't just judging her. They were testing him. The elder's voice boomed again. The council demands clarity. Remove the human from the palace, and restore order. A pause. Or relinquish the throne. The words dropped like a blade. Gasps rippled across the hall. Even Lena's breath caught. Relinquish the throne. They were serious. The silence before the storm. Adrian slowly rose from the throne. Every movement deliberate. Every step heavy with history. For centuries, that throne had been his identity. His burden. His prison. He descended the steps. The entire court watched. Lena's heart pounded painfully. You don't have to do this, she whispered. He stopped in front of her. His eyes were not angry. Not conflicted. Clear. I have ruled in fear, he said quietly, but the hall heard every word. I have ruled in distance. He turned to face the court. I believed power required isolation. His voice deepened. But power without heart becomes tyranny. Murmurs erupted. The elder slammed his staff against stone. Choose. The word echoed like thunder. The crown falls. Adrian removed the crown from his head. The room went completely still. Some believed he would place it back on the throne. Others believed he would cast it aside. Instead, he turned to Lena. She shook her head slightly. Adrian. But he stepped closer. You reminded me what it means to protect, he said softly. You reminded me that fear is not strength. He lifted the crown. The entire kingdom holding its breath. If loving her makes me unfit to rule. His voice rang stronger now. Then this kingdom never deserved me. And before anyone could react, he placed the crown gently on Lena's head. Gasps exploded across the hall. Outrage. Shock. Disbelief. But no one moved. Because Adrian's power still filled the room like a storm ready to break. She stood before me without fear, he continued. She bled for me without hesitation. His eyes burned red now. Tell me, which of you would have done the same? No one answered. Because none of them would have. The breaking of the old order. The elder rose in fury. This is madness. A human cannot sit the throne. Adrian's voice dropped into something ancient. Then changed the law. The hall trembled. Windows cracked under the force of his aura. For centuries, you controlled kings through tradition and arranged alliances, he continued. You feared compassion because it cannot be manipulated. His gaze locked onto Celine. This ends tonight. Celine's composure finally cracked. You would destroy everything for her? Adrian didn't hesitate. I would rebuild everything with her. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Darius stepped forward. And knelt. For the king. Another guard followed. Then another. Then dozens. Not kneeling to Lena. Not kneeling to rebellion. Kneeling to choice. The court saw it. Power wasn't shifting. It was evolving. The elder slowly lowered his staff. The old system was cracking. And they knew it. That night, the palace felt different. Not divided. Not burning. Still. Lena stood on the balcony once more. The crown still resting lightly in her hands now, she had removed it. Adrian approached quietly. "You terrified an entire council tonight," she said softly. He exhaled slowly. "So did you, the night you slapped me." A small smile appeared on her lips. "You could have killed me. I know. And instead you smiled." He stepped closer. "Because for the first time, someone treated me like a man. Not a monster. Not a king. Just a man." The wind moved gently between them. "No more ultimatums," he said quietly. "No more arranged futures." Her voice softened. "What happens now?" He reached for her hand. "Now, we build something new. No dramatic kiss. No fireworks. Just two hands intertwined. Human warmth. Vampire strength. Equal. Balanced. Chosen." Below them, the kingdom still whispered. Change takes time. Acceptance takes courage. But something had shifted forever. The girl under the bridge now stood beside a king. Not because she was rescued. Not because she was chosen for beauty. But because she was brave enough to stand. And sometimes, all it takes to change a kingdom is one fearless slap. The end drop of blood crown.